Hello once again. I am back. Look guys, I'm really enjoying doing this. I really like doing this simple spreadsheet analysis, crunching some numbers. It helps me because I get to understand better how things work. Doing it myself is a bit boring, and hopefully it's going to help some of you out there. So for today's video, apologies, I've got a sore throat. What we're going to do is we're going to look at Airbnb. So when you buy a flat or a property, you essentially have a choice. You can buy that property, you can do it up, you can sell it. You can buy that property, you can rent it to someone to live in. You can buy that property and then you can do some clever stuff where you rent it to several people, split the accommodation, and do those strategies. Or there is this sort of trendy thing right now of serviced accommodation. So essentially what you do is you buy the property, you furnish it all, make it look all nice inside, make it habitable, put all the stuff into it, put the fridge, kettle, microwave, plates, glasses, sheets, towels, shower gel, put everything so that people can just move in and live there. Then you put it on the likes of Airbnb, booking.com, and then you start getting bookings. You can control that, you can control the nightly rate, and often if you do it that way, you end up getting more profit than you will by just renting it for a certain amount per month. So this is a property that my family has. It's in Glasgow. It's a flat, so there's a separate entrance to the flat, which is quite ideal, and it's 2 bedrooms inside. So first, let me show you some pictures. Here's some pictures. So it's all been done up nicely inside. It's been plastered, painted white, new carpets, all quite nice and tidy. The living room has got, you know, a nice colors inside. It's got a nice stand for the TV. The kitchen, the floor has actually been changed in that kitchen, but you know, it's pretty much everything that you need. It's all there. The fridge has also been changed to a brand new fridge. It's got a back garden just out the back there. Newly refurbished bathrooms with wet wall panels, new flooring, new shower, cabin, etc. So that was really nice. That's the first bedroom. You've got, you know, just decent size, a fairly big bed, TV. Now there's a wardrobe there as well, actually. And then the second bedroom, again, a bit more spacious. There's a little chair, sort of a master bedroom, nice big bed, etc. So that gives you an idea of what the flat is like. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at 3 scenarios for that flat. We've actually rented it long term for a while, and we have then went into Airbnb self-managed, and then from that we are now thinking about keeping it as an Airbnb but having a management company doing it for us. So with all of those, we're going to look at the numbers and we're going to see what really makes sense and what doesn't. I don't know for sure, but I assume the value is around 100,000 for this particular flat. So let's look at the first scenario, buy to let. In that case, you're going to be renting it out for, right, let's move that here and just put here buy to let, Airbnb self-managed, and Airbnb managed. So just to be clear, scenario 1 is where you just rent it to somebody long term. Scenario 2 is self-managed Airbnb, so that's where you deal with the bookings, you deal with the cleaning, you deal with everything, and you manage it yourself. You run it like a little hotel. And then the last option is Airbnb managed, which is where you take an agency who will take over the property. They will deal with all the bookings, all the cleaning, everything, and they'll be the ones that you'll be paying a commission to. So within buy to let, a property like this, I would take and fetch easily 750 per month. So times that by 12 months. Then you have an agency fee that needs to come off that. So that times by 0.9 to 10% roughly agency fee. That's kind of what you're left with. There will be some repairs, maintenance, compliance that has to happen, but we'll just look at the differences. So for compliance, buy to let probably needs a bit less compliance than Airbnb. Airbnb needs more frequent checks, etc. So for that one, I'll just keep it at 0, just for a fair comparison. Bills. When you're doing a buy to let, you don't really have any bills. The tenant takes care of all the bills. So that's not really something of an issue. And then other, again, nothing that I can think of at this stage. So that gives a total income of actually, let me just change that a little bit. We'll do the agency at 10%, so £900. So it means that the overall calculation is the rent minus the agency fee minus compliance, bills and other. So £8,100 a year. You might be able to push that up. Actually, it might not be 750, it might be 800, for example. It's something I need to check. But in terms of a return, it's going to be 8.1. Relatively simple calculation. You can also times that by 100 to give you a percentage. 8.1% return on your investment. So relatively decent actually. Obviously you'll have to take into account all of the other expenses such as compliance, etc. So it will go down a bit from there. But not too bad. Not too bad at all. And actually, if the rent was increased from 750 to 800, you're up to 8.6%. So, not a bad business model. Now, let's look at Airbnb self-managed. For a property like this, in an area like this, I would say you can get an average of about £80 per night, £80 to £100 per night. So we will call it 90, but it's not going to be full occupancy, so you're not going to have people there 30 days a month. I think it's quite normal in a month to have 80 to 90% occupancy, so I would say times that by 356 days a year and times that by 80% occupancy, because there will be periods when you'll be doing stuff in there and when people are not booking, so that's just something to keep in mind. So as you can see straight away, you're going from 9,000 rent to 25,000, so a huge difference. Agency in this case is 0 because you're the one that's managing it yourself. Compliance for a buy-to-let, so for our Airbnb, is a bit more important. You need like sometimes like fire blankets and bits and pieces like that. So I would say overall in a year I would separate say even £500 for compliance, because there are things that need to be done. Bills are quite important. All of a sudden you are left with paying all of the bills, and that can be 150 council tax, 120 gas and electricity, £30 for the internet. I think those are probably the main ones. I don't think you have much more. Well, TV license you have to pay as well because the guests might be watching TV, so then let's say it's about £15. As far as I can remember, that's all the key bills that you have to pay every month. And then you times that by 12. So yeah, around about that amount. Remember, for each one of those, you also have either your mortgage payment or your financing payments. This is not a fully paid off property, so you'll need to take that into account. But for now, I'm just looking at side-by-side comparison with the same bills out of the equation. I'm actually going to change to cleaning, because cleaning and maintenance is very important in an Airbnb. If you self-manage, that's a very difficult one to calculate, because you might be spending, you can say you spend £50 a month for the cleaning products. Let's give it a bit more actually, £80 a month. You know, £100 a month, because sometimes you have to, somebody steals a sheet or a pillow, you have to buy a new pillow here and there. So there is a higher expense. I'm just trying to think, once a month, 80 quid on cleaning, 20 quid on miscellaneous stuff, maybe even a bit more. Let's just give it 150 just to be safe. Times that by 12. This is the amount of the materials, but you're the one. Sorry, my throat is really bad. You're the one that's actually cleaning all the time. So either you or your family. So how do you calculate that? You do, if you don't pay yourself, that's going to be a very cheap thing to run, and it's going to give you a great return. If you start paying yourself, that return will go down significantly. So for this one, we probably need two scenarios, which is the first one, which is unpaid. And then the second one, which is paid. So just remember, you've got the buy-to-let scenario, you've got the Airbnb self-managed unpaid, and Airbnb self-managed paid. Let's get that bigger just so that you can see what's going on there, and then Airbnb managed by an agency. So if you're not paying yourself, you're working for free, you're slaving away at the Airbnb, where are you going to end up? You're going to end up with your rent minus your agency fee, which is non-existent, minus your compliance, minus your bills, minus your cleaning. So you end up at 19,000. Of course, if you then take that as a percentage of B23 of the value of 100,000, you're at 19.6% return. So by not paying yourself, you create a very good return for your investment. You're potentially, you know, getting all your money back in 5 years, but you have to keep slaving away and you have to keep working in there, which is quite difficult. If you were in a position where you paid yourself, it will depend how much you pay yourself, obviously, but this would be the same, compliance would be the same, bills would be the same, cleaning would not be the same, because those are materials, and I would say for each clean you can pay yourself a certain amount. I would say it's reasonable to say that in a month you clean maybe twice a week, so 8 times a month. So you have 8 times a month, times that by 12 months, and times that by how much it is. You pay yourself 20 quid each time you clean, for example. That goes up, this expense goes up. You can, if I'm being honest, as is within Airbnb, you can put a cleaning fee. You can put that outside of your £90 rate, and that will be paid by the person for every stay, and then you don't worry about it as much here. But remember, the guests care about the overall price. So if the cleaning is very high, then they might not book with you. So it's something that is worth considering. But with this situation here, you've got, again, quite a lot of income, no agency, same compliance, same bills, and a higher cleaning fee. If you pay yourself just little amounts for those cleans, and you do clean 8 times a month, which is quite significant, twice a week, you end up with, well, you can already see what the return is going to be, 17.6%. So very reasonable. Again, you're more than doubling your return by doing this Airbnb business. If you do the managed model, let's analyze it. You will have the same income. However, the agency will take, I think it's about 15-20% of the income. Some of the agencies take it before expenses, some of the agencies take it after expenses. So that's quite a difficult one to figure out, but we know the compliance is going to be the same. The cleaning is going to be significantly higher because instead of paying yourself, the company now has to send somebody every time to clean, and sometimes that can be a deeper clean, etc., and it will be varied. So the cleaner will probably end up being that sort of amount. The bills will end up being the same, and the agency, let's just say they take 20% after expenses. So that would be this amount minus this, minus this, minus that, times it by 20%. So there we go, the agency will take $3,500 a year for that property. Seems quite reasonable actually, so that could work. In which case you have your income minus your agency minus compliance, bills and cleaning, £14,000. So again, if you're getting good bookings and if you're having people stay there, even at that level, you're gonna see a 14% return. So there you have it. That's my analysis. And actually, some of the other stuff to consider is for a buy-to-let. Let's just put it in here. You have your pros and your cons. So let's just say new note here. What are the pros of doing the buy-to-let? It is long-term. Usually it's less hassle, not always, but usually it's less hassle. Bills are paid by the tenants. And also actually what we figured out is that buy-to-lets are better for mortgage purposes, because mortgage companies sometimes see Airbnb as this risky business, so they will not allow you to take reliable income from Airbnbs. They will actually say, we're assuming that you're gonna be responsible for all the bills without any income, because that could happen in Airbnb. There could be no income, so that's something that they see. So this one is better for future mortgages. It's a bit silly because the buy-to-let tenants at any point can just stop paying, and it's going to be a nightmare to get them to pay again. However, it's just part of the game. For some reason, the lenders accept the tenancy agreements better than they accept the Airbnb income. Cons is that your tenants, if you get really bad tenants and they don't want to pay, it will take you a long time to be going through courts, and the eviction process is really, really difficult because they can stop paying you. You still have to pay for everything, and all of a sudden, you're stuck waiting for months and months in courts in order to get those people out who are basically messing your life up and not paying. So within a buy-to-let, the evictions are quite difficult and a very lengthy and expensive process, and also the return you get is much worse. Another thing to keep in mind for buy-to-let is the deposit scheme. So your tenant will give you a deposit. Safe Deposit Scotland takes that, and Safe Deposit Scotland can be quite strict. So if they mess things up in the as they move out, you need to have all the evidence, because it's very easy for that to be disallowed. We've had a complete mess after some tenants moved out. We had to put thousands into renovating the place, and we only got £300 or £400 from the deposit. So again, that's something that you need to keep in mind, because if they completely mess up the place, you might not be able to get your money back, even if there's a deposit in place. So here's some pros and cons of a buy-to-let. With an Airbnb, I think both paid and unpaid. Let's put a note here. Pros is the return. Flexibility, because you have people going in and out, and actually None of them are going to be staying there long term, and if they decide to try and stay there for much longer than they're booking, they don't have a right to. They don't have a tenancy agreement, they're overstaying, they're essentially trespassing, and it's much easier to evict them if that would be the case. I think the rest of it is probably cons. One of the big ones is setup fees. If you have an Airbnb, it's not cheap. I've realized that the hardware is not cheap to do it up. You need to buy couches, you need to buy tables, you need to buy TV, you need to set up internet, you need to buy the bed, you need to buy the towels. It's a lot of stuff you need, and it's quite pricey. So even if you try to save money, you want to give the guests a good experience. You don't want to buy the crappiest stuff. And it's something that, it's expensive. You need to take into account that you have to invest upfront in order to make that happen. Second is, in Scotland, for example, you need a license, so that can be a lengthy process. So for us, it took several months to get the license agreed. It also costs a few £100 to get it, and also we had to get a letter from like a planning agreement, like almost like a planning permission agreement that the use of the property is going to be changed. So the license is again a bit of a con and something that we don't really like, but it's it's there and we have to comply with it. We don't want to mess around with it too much. And another big one is cleaning. So you have to be nearby, you have to be able to clean, you have to be flexible. So if you're doing it yourself, you really have to be on the ball. You have to be taking the bins out, you have to be cleaning, you have to make sure everything is good, you have to send the check-in instructions. It can be quite a lot of your time that gets spent on doing all of that. So for a bit of a better return, you end up having to do quite a lot yourself. The managed one is the model that we're moving to. We've got a couple of agencies that we're currently chatting to, and I think we're going to be going for one of them. And with that, again, the pros is still a high return. You still have that flexibility with tenants. And I suppose you don't need to, you get your time back. So similar to a buy-to-let with a managed property, the agency deals with it. You don't have to be there checking people in, cleaning, etc., which is good. Cons is that the return is lower than self-managed. So our pros is the return is better than buy-to-let, significantly better. But the con is that the return is still lower than the self-managed Airbnb, and you're gonna have to pay a fee for the service. Another con is the rating. When you're doing it yourself, you're in control of exactly how it gets cleaned and how everything gets delivered. When you're with an agency, what if the cleaner is sick? What if they don't come up? What if they forget to do something? What if you get a 1-star review? There's a much higher chance of that because you're not in control. And that's something that can suffer. You end up having to, you might end up with a low rating, having to reduce your price and mess up all of your numbers as a result. So rating is quite a big one. What were the license is still the same. Yeah, I think those are the main ones. So again, to summarize, buy-to-let, good investment, safe, something you can get. If you can get a good family in there and forget about it, it's a good way to go. If you have a bit more time on your hands and you're able to manage it yourself, I would go for this option, whether you pay yourself or not. You get amazing return on your investment. It's a lot of work, but it can pay dividends. Sometimes you get long bookings that, sometimes people might come for a month or two, in which case, there's a lot less cleaning, a lot less maintenance. And then the managed one, I'll talk about it more when we actually put it into the management agency, but for now, those are the numbers. And actually, the return reduces by a few percent, which is reasonable. I think it's still reasonable. You still get more money managed than a buy-to-let, and you still have the benefits. So I think for us, this makes quite a lot of sense. Just to finish the video, I'll try to make it as informative as possible and just talk through the setup costs. So this is, oh sorry, this should be a pound sign. Yep, so setup costs. So to set up an Airbnb, you have a license cost of about £400, which is one off. You have the compliance I'm going to ignore because the gas checks, all of that stuff is the same. You then have to have a special insurance that might cost you an extra £200 a year because it needs to have certain elements that the normal insurance does not have. All the checks are the same. You then have to have, let's just put it that way, beds. You need to have 2 beds, 2 bedrooms, there's 2 beds. It can be, you know, if you try to go cheap, 200, 250 a bed, that can be £500. You need to have cupboards. That can be another £200. You need to have wardrobes. Again, on the cheaper side, £200. You need to then have the living room sofa. Again, let's say £600. Try to save money. Actually, let's go 400. You know, not everyone is gonna go for a fancier stuff. Living room, TV and TV stand. I would say TV stand 50 to 100 quid, TV a couple of hundred, so it can be about 350 for that one. You need table and chairs, can be another couple of hundred, probably 300. You then need kitchen stuff, so for the kitchen, let's just put it here. 300 quid for the fridge, 50 quid microwave, 60 quid kettle and toaster, and then plates, glasses, all of that stuff, another 100 quid, some towels, all of that stuff, another 50 quid, some washing up liquid, cleaning products, bin bags, let's just do another 50 quid. So we've covered the living room, we've covered the kitchen, we've covered the 2 bedrooms, bathroom. Obviously don't need to furnish that much, but you just need towels and stuff like that. But I would just also add in bedding and towels. They often have to get changed, you often have to get new ones. For that, I would say for the two beds plus the towels, I would budget a couple of £100. I would say £300 because you want to get a few sets to try and get all of that. So again, very high level calculation, but hopefully that gives you an idea. What you'll be paying is around this much, about £3,500 just to do it up, and that's cheaply. I would also actually add transport because a lot of the stuff I bought and actually got a guy with a van to do it, and I probably paid him £80 to £100 each time, and it was probably 3 times, so let's just say £200 for that as well. So there you have it. To set up an Airbnb, you'll be looking at around this number. If you want to go completely luxurious, you can go 5-10k, but realistically that's roughly what you're looking at. Quite a bit of time, but for this investment you can increase your rent significantly, increase your yield significantly, and even if you do the managed Airbnb, you're still going to be in a much better position because of the nightly rate being much higher. So yeah, a lot of me talking, a lot of analysis, actually really good analysis for me as well, because now I see that going to managed Airbnb is not as bad as I thought. But let me know in the comments what you think. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that gave you some understanding of the Airbnb process and how to do the calculations. Again, I'll upload this spreadsheet as always in the comments, so you'll be able to use it. And yeah, thank you for your time.